moderator là Minh mà. Đây ạ. Okay. Anh nói luôn hả? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is our pleasure on behalf of AmCham. My name is Lynette. I'm the member of the panel the panel advocacy panel of AmCham, the Ho Chi Minh City. This is our pleasure. This time that we have the 5th event organized by AmCham, and this time we talk about GDPR, the data protection regulation in Europe, and also the second topic is about the bank debt collection. So we have two very prominent speakers. Number one is Mr. Dr. Nguyen Van Tuan. Yes. Dr. Tuan has experience. I mean, he used to be in charge of ISDS, investment dispute of the Ministry of Justice, where he ran a lot of prominent arbitration case in Vietnam that protect the Vietnam government in investor government investment disputes. After that, he joined Vietnam Airlines as the head of the legal department, where he in charge of the GDPR. I mean, he in charge of everything. The most prominent one is he got a license for Vietnam Airlines to fly to the US, and as far as you know, Vietnam Airlines is the first and only one airlines that have a direct flight to the US, and thanks to, of course, his effort and many other efforts. He also run the project of compliance of Vietnam Airlines for GDPR. For compliance with GDPR. So that's why I invite him to speak about GDPR compliance, because let's say banks have a lot of clients, insurance company have a lot of clients, and they collect a lot of data privacy clients for individuals clients, data. And you say you may see that data nowadays is the raw materials to have big data, and big data is the raw material to have deep learning, and deep learning is the main point to have AI, and AI is soon to replace people. To make it blunt, yes, they will replace us. So that's why it's very important that we have to learn how to co-op and how not to become dinosaurs soon. And that's the reason why, I mean, European government, they try to protect like people sharing private data. They target people like Google, like Metaverse, like Facebook. You will see that sometimes you hop in. I want to see the refrigerator, and then immediately you have tons of advertising about refrigerator. Or you buy a ticket to Hanoi, and immediately you have a lot of people like, hey, you want a taxi to go to Hanoi? Or I say, oh, Vinhome Ocean Park might be nice. And then immediately you have a lot of people because, hey, you want to buy houses in Vinhome Ocean Park. A part of being annoyed is also a scare that they know a lot about us. They have a lot of information that they're not supposed to know. So what would be the responsibilities? For those people who store our data, and if it leak the data, who will be responsible? Let's say if people like the airlines, they leak the information, and we want to take legal action against those who leak it. Is it possible? And so those are the things that I think it would be quite interesting, and we're quite interested to see how European regulations on that, because actually GDPR is the model for us to develop Circular 13. So Circular 13 is a little bit lower level than GDPR, because GDPR they not only impose the rule, but also they impose the system that makes sure that the rules is protected. So that presentation makes sense not only for lawyers but also for IT people. and they create a lot of opportunities for compliance, not only for lawyers but also for IT companies, because IT companies, they have to come in and test the system and attack the system and see whether there's a leakage of information. If there's leakage, they have to fix, otherwise they can issue a certificate. I could imagine that there's a lot of issues that a lot of opportunities for IT companies and for lawyers in relation to GDPR. Also, when we're talking about sanction in the US, in Europe, the sanction is very high. It's 4% of your revenue. It's very high. In Vietnam, it's not that high, but if you serve European clients, let's say you run a hotel and you serve a European clients, you are subject to European law. You are a bank and you serve a European client who's subject to European law. So that's something that maybe you can, maybe Tuan can fix me up, but those are the things that that we would be interested to see. Of course, the main target of GDPR is Google and Metaverse and Facebook, but they regulate everyone, so we better comply if that is not too costly. Then the second topic, I will make a presentation later, but we have here Just Fu. He used to run like 1,000 cases. Before he retired, he was the deputy chief justice of Ho Chi Minh City of economic court. So he have a lot of cases on court case, and he made a lot of presentation, and everyone that he make a presentation, it attract a lot of people who really like his way of presentation, very to the point, very short and very concise. Earlier this year, we just have a presentation on enforcement and recognition for an arbitral award, and he's the first speaker, kind of like keynote speaker, and he lay out 5 points, and then everybody just follow that 5 points. Very easy, very follow. And I hope that this time he wants to present that on the issue of debt collection for the banks. Seems to be easy because somebody default, then how you gonna lose? But I mean, there's still a lot of ways that we have to look at it, because by the end of the day, you don't lose, but maybe you don't get anything, because you don't lose the case, but the asset is not there, or you cannot enforce the mortgage, or the justice may be delayed. So that's something, the second topic that we'll talk about. Now, without further ado, I would like to leave the floor for Tuan for the presentation.
So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And so thank you, Dr. Nate, is invite me to this seminar in order to talk about the GDPR, and I'm very happy to do that. And I think this is, to some extent, is when I saw the list of participants today, I saw lots of people come from the banks and come from the some lawyers, and also come from enterprise companies that used to be use a lot of personal data in order to hand over or process the personal data. I think that is it's good to know about our regulation in Vietnam, as well as this European regulation. And so my story is come back to maybe 30 years ago or 20 years ago. We don't need any regulation on the personal data protection, because last time people used to the with the when you provide any your data personal data information to the company, they just write down and keep it in the books, and so it doesn't spread to any person outside the company. So that time is how to say, we don't need to have any regulation for that. But nowadays with the developments of internet and with the development of AI, or Vietnamese also mentioned the boom of technology, is people easily transfer the personal information to another person or another company. It's very easy. So that's why we, in 2016, the European Union is enacted the GDPR regulation. GDPR means the General Data Protection Regulation. And so, because given the fact that is the law, GDPR is very complicated, and so that it needs time for the company or the citizen of the European Union to get acquainted or familiar with the regulation. So after the 2 years, I mean it's 2018, so the GDPR became effective for the whole the European Union and for the other country as well. So I think that is in comparison with our regulation. Mr. Ned also mentioned about the decree 13 of the government in 2023. I think it's last year is enacted, but I think that is in comparison with the two act. I think that is GDPR is more or less is covering the whole issue relating to protection of our data, maybe better than our country regulation, because it's the first point I would like to make, that is that the decree 13 is already handled to the administrative body of Vietnam authority to handle or responsible on the leak of information. But I think that is for the GDPR, it requires all the company, the enterprise in Europe or even outside of Europe, you have to comply with, and you have to protect the data of the any clients, and rather than the supervisor authority, as in the state authority. And so that I think that is to the extent that okay. So to the extent that is the GDPR is more or less focused on the obligation of enterprise rather than the obligation of supervisor authority. So for the first part, I would like to make our presentation have two parts. The first one, I would like to introduce you about the GDPR. The second part, I would like to introduce about the decree 13 and the third one. So choose my experience in when I worked for Vietnam Airlines, I would like to introduce how and Vietnam Airlines is comply with the GDPR and the law of Vietnam in terms of data protection. So I'm very sorry today because I prepared in Vietnamese, but because according to the requirement from the organizers is we prepared the Vietnamese version for slide, but when I came here,
we will send English version.
Yeah. And Vietnamese let ask me to present in English. So, but Vietnamese also mentioned that we're going to send you the English version afterwards. Thank you.
Yep.
So first we move to the introduction about the GDPR, as I mentioned earlier. Yes. So the regulation enacted in 2016 and effective 2018. So what we try to get know with the regulation is we have to know about the scope of application. It's very important because it's for the like the banks and the airlines is really important. So given so let's say that, so for the company who have establishment in European Union, of course they should be governed by the regulation. But for the other company without or with establishment in the European Union, do they have the obligation to comply with the GDPR, I have to say they have to, because the approach of the GDPR, the approach to the citizen of the European Union. That means when they protect the citizen of the European Union, including their personal data.
So like hotel tourist.
Hotel tourists.
Yeah.
And Vietnam Airlines, they have a branch in European Union, for example. So they have establishment in European Union. So they also be governed by the European Union. But I think that's it for the hotels in Vietnam only. And except for the hotel run by the very famous branch, for example, Accor or Marriott's, they also be governed by the GDPR. But for the small hotel, I'm sure that they are not governed by.
How about restaurant? Like
no, they don't
no
have
restaurant, right?
Vietnamese technology here in Vietnam. You establish it and you collect the data from any European Union citizen. You don't have to be comply with the GDPR. But I think that is for the very famous branch is the bank in they have establishment in European Union.
How about hospital?
Hospital, if they have establishment in European Union.
Or if they have European patient.
They have patients in Vietnam. They don't have to be be within scope of the GDPR. So I think that is the first one. We have to remember that is of course the company established or set up in European Union or has establishment in European Union. They be governed by GDPR. They have to comply with this. And the company who have establishment outside European Union, but also they also have establishment in European Union, they also be governed by the GDPR. And for the others company, they have a monitoring behavior. That means they have to compile or make profile of the European Union citizen. They also have to comply with the GDPR. So that is the first topics relating to the scope of application. And the second is I would like to introduce the concept or definition of the key important definition. First one, we talk about the controller. So I think the whole ideas of GDPR, they relating to three subjects. First one is controller, and the second one is data subject. That means the person who owns the data, and the third one is processor. And
so what's the difference between controller and processor?
The controller and processor, I would like to take the Vietnam Airlines example. For example, Vietnam Airlines is they have to send a ticket to any person, right?
Yep.
So they have to hire the company, for example, server, in order to process the data and then to provide on to the customer. So the server should be the processor in this kind. Yeah. So,
but Vietnam Airlines is the controller.
Vietnam Airlines is the controller,
and the owner
the subject is the data subject.
Data subject is the passenger.
Yeah, the passenger. Yeah. So in this case, and this is the subject in the GDPR. But I think it's the important point relating to the whole ideas of GDPR about the processing of data. You have to remember carefully about all of the things relating to the processing of data. So about first we talk about the personal data. So I mean here the personal data relating to the biology or even your personal information, for example, your names or telephone numbers or anything belong to you. Any information belong to you. But personal data, they have divided into two categories. First one is the normal personal data, for example, your name, your telephone number, And the second is this, we think it's about sensitive information relating to.
May I stop you here? For example, if I was catched by the police and the police asked me to give him my mobile phone, can I object? And I say that's my personal data in here. I'm not gonna give you my mobile phone.
No, because it's under Vietnamese law. Is we have a decree number 13. We have exceptional case. That's when you have to provide him any information relating to
the mobile phone.
Yeah.
And the laptop.
No, it's up to first information, the personal normal information first, and to some extent you have to disclose is
Right.
some is sensitive information. If we think that is when you disclose the information relating to the national security or relating to the criminal case,
they must have some charge, some intention.
Yeah. So this is
we must have to be a suspect before.
Yeah, so
that could happen.
It should be some exceptional case. Right. You have to provide information to some extent. So that is the basic definition of the GDPR. And the second definition about the processing, I just remind you, I just recall you about processing. That means should be automated processing, or I mean it's normal processing. For example, you write down the information and automated. That means you have a system of computers and you process the only information you collected from the passenger or from the people. That is the processing. And about the subject data, you know that is Vietnam Internet, and I talk about the passenger, the Vietnam Airlines clients from the hotel, from the banks, for example. It should be the person who own the data or personal data. And about the consent, what does it mean, the consent? What does it mean is when the passenger give to the airlines or the bank any information, so they do not give it voluntarily. They need the bank need the consent from the passenger in order to process the data information. And so that is mean the consent between the processor and the subject data subject.
So let's say if I want to attend this seminar, I have to fill in a form, and that is my personal data, right?
Yes.
And in the form, you have to say that we're gonna collect your data for the purpose of organizing the seminar, and only this, and you make sure that you're not gonna send that information to anyone else, right?
Yeah. So usually,
and also when you send email, you're not supposed to send like 1,000 people so that people know the email. You have to BCC. You have to hide the emails of those people.
Yes. So later I will talk about the case of Vietnam Airlines related to marketing. You have to get the consent from the passenger in order to do marketing. And so the law is very strict. When you get the consent, that means you have rights to process the information. If you don't get the consent from the client or customer or the passenger, you have no rights to process.
So in the company, if you have a DPO, the data protection officer, they have to check that whether the system, they already make sure that they have the consent from that data subject before they process it.
So normally, yes, the function of data DPO, that means data protection officer, is quite different. They have to control and manage or monitor the whole system of the company, rather than is checking the consent of the people. But I think that is the consent they must give at the beginning when when you want to have the airline to provide you a service, and so between you and between the data subject and the controller, they must have the specific purpose. What we mean specific purpose, that means we have the contract between them, and so that they, for example, Vietnam Airlines provide you a service of transportation, for example, and you accepted it. That means you give the Vietnam Airlines consent to the service. So And the third point relating to supervisory authority, that means the authority of the European Union is a member, they establish each country, they establish supervisory authority in order to monitor and to control all the information is connected by the companies, or they also have function to investigate any leak information from the company to the public. So they should have a measure to stop that, or they have to make to investigate it.
So that means that if you think you comply with GDPR, you should inform the supervisory authority that you comply and give them all the policy and the regulation and system so that they can come and check. And
I think that is for certain circumstances that is supervised authority step in only in some case. For example, it's when the leaks of information to the personnel or in the last scale to the public, and so they step in and to do investigation and to have a sanction to the company, or and this is the first.
So let's say
this is first point, and then let me finish. And the second point is the supervised authorities. They have the function for the post checks. That means when you do the data protection impacts assessment, you have to submit to the supervised authority in order to check it, and they also have function to random checks for the system of the company. Yeah. So what's your
let's say if back to the example, if I buy a ticket and then somebody approached me to sell taxi service, I can inform the supervisory authority that my information was leaked, and they will investigate, right?
Yes. So according to the law, they have to the function to investigation. So according based on the claim of the passenger. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Les is accompany with me during.
Thank you. But then you still say that the whole point of GDPR is about processing, but you haven't say anything about processing.
Now I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Now because it's
so far so good. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you. Yeah. So next we finish that slide and move on, and another is we talk about the processor. I also mentioned about Vietnam Airlines case for your easy understanding. In that case, between the controller and processor, so they have a contract. For example, between Vietnam Airlines and the server, they have a contract to process all the information or data information collected by Vietnam Airlines in order to sell the tickets to the passenger. And so that is the processor. And the controller we already talked. And about the cross-border processing, that means, for example, with the companies, and that is like Vietnam Airlines. Vietnam Airlines is an international or multi-national company. They have a lot of branch outside, so they have to transfer the data of the person to abroad. So they have to, so that is the concept of the definition of the cross-border. For example, the passengers of Vietnam Airlines, when they want to go to, for example, myself, I'm a Vietnamese person, I want to go to European, for example, and I have to buy tickets from Vietnam Airlines. I have Vietnam Airlines need to inform to any authority in European Union. So that is Vietnam Airlines need to transfer all my data information to the European Union authority to check my eligibility to come to Europe, for example. So that is the transfers of data. So we do the cross-border processing. And so relating to another point, approach relating to the the classification of the personal data. I already told top class is spot class is we have a normal data information where we have sensitive information. Yeah, on the left side, my hand is we have name, photograph, number, and even the bank account, email, IDs, and certificates, and so on the right hand, we related to biological file, and this is so it's a criminal records and nationalities and abuse, for example, and political abuse and religion abuse and members of any association or criminal records.
Yes, can I stop you there? There are two things is sensitive, but in Vietnam it's not sensitive. Number one is religion, and number two is political party. So in Vietnam, in the CB, you always have to declare this thing. Are you a member of Communist Party? When you join the Communist Party, and whether there is a religion, what kind of what is your religions? So those are considered as sensitive, right?
Yeah, considered as sensitive information.
If it is not neither here or there, is it what is that? Let's say gene or blood group, something like that. If it's not listed here, then
it should be
sensitive.
It
should be sensitive.
Normally, this is what the European Union classified personal information in two kinds in order for the processing or for the management of the processing of the data information. So if they are not in either way, but I think that is for the sensitive information is have broad meaning. That's
broader.
Broader meaning. Do you mean that for the biological things? I think that is quite broad. I think so. So that is all the information related of the GDPR, and so we move on the in GDPR we have four key points information. The first one is about the data protection principle. So that is the first one. The second one is rights of the data subject. The third one is legal basis for the processing, and the first one which should be a responsibility of the controller. So I'm going to talk about the first one. This is the principles of the processing data. So we have here we have six principles. First one is related about the fair and transparency, and the second one about the relating to the purpose of the processing, and the third one about relating to the minimums processing data, and the first one is relating to about the accuracy, and the fourth one relating to the storage of data, and the sixth one relating to the encryption or accuracy of the data. So that means so in the slide it's so complicated, but I would like to say that is when the controller wants to process the information collected from the data subject, they need to do it in transparency way and accuracy, and store in the in the safety, and they need to have the contracts between the controller and the subject data in order to provide any services or any purpose is between them. It should be the legal basis for them to process the information.
There's one data that is cookie. So every time you go to a website in Europe mainly, they say that you have to accept the cookies or you don't accept the cookies. Is that for the purpose of data protection?
I don't think this is for the purpose of data protection, because it's here between you and maybe internet providers or any website. That is your voluntary is to provide and any not job information, but this is automated information from your personal that is should be connected by the internet or providers or any company want to access your information. So I think that in this case we certainly we it's not how to say it's not such a contract between the Vietnam Airlines and the passenger in order to provide any specific information or specific services. I think that.
So the regulation that requires us to accept cookies, not on the GDPR, but something else.
Not on the GDPR, I think so.
Yeah.
And the important important note should be for the children is under 16, for example, it needs to be to get the consent from the guardians or the parents. So that is that's the important point when I would like to take the case of Vietnam Airlines when we do the tickets sent to the children under 16. So under the tickets, we have to say that is when you provide information to the Vietnam Airlines, so you mean that you accept the Vietnam Airlines to process the information of the young children. So without any disclaimer. Yeah. So that is the important point we have to build up in Vietnam Airlines in order to protect the Vietnam Airlines business. So that is the important point relating to the GDPR. And the second important point relating to the rights of the subject matter. So we have here is the sixth rights of the subject matter. The first one is right to access. That means when the controller collects the information from the data subject and they store it in the website. So the passenger or the data subject maybe can have access to such information in order to check is it correct or not, or accuracy or not. So that should be the first right. The second right is to rectification. That means when they they have a right to access to the their personal data, they need to check it and they see it. If it's not correct, then they can rectify it or inform to the controller to rectify the information. And the third one is right to be deleted or to be forgotten. That means between you and between the data subject and the controller, you don't have any more service or any more contract. You can ask them to delete or erase your personal data information. And the third one is the first one, right to data portability. That means you can ask the controller to transfer your personal information to the other companies or to the third party if you want to do that. And right to objects. That means you have a right to object all the information. Is if you don't want to them to use or process your information, you can ask them to stop it. And right to restrict processing. That means you can ask them to some extent to process your information. Nowadays, you not know the whole case. And so that is all the important point relating to the second principle. Is the rights to the data subject. And so as I mentioned earlier, that means we have some exceptional relating to the provision or process of information, for example, relating to the national security or relating to investigation, for example, like criminal investigation conducted by the police or the supervisor authorities. So that should be the exceptional case. You have to provide your own information or data information, or the controller also disclose all information to the third party if they have function and if they relate to the national security. Okay. And so another point relating to the here we talk about the contract relationship between the data controller and the processor. And so here, maybe in the practice, there are two controllers. That means that we call it a joint controller. That means the both controller can have between the two. For example, the two airlines in the group or the two hotels in the groups. They are both want to collect the data information from the client, from the customer in order to process such information. So we call this is the two joint controller. And they also between the two joint controllers, they also have a contract relating to the data processor in order to protect the personal data information in a good way. Between the data controller and not joint, for example, between the airlines and another airline, if they want to share the customer information, for example, and between the controller and the processor, and they also have a contract between, for example, between Vietnam Airlines and the servers. They must have contract in order to process the information. So that is all the things in the GDPR should be governed by the GDPR in order to protect the data information. And we talk about the transfers abroad of the personal data. So it's very strict to do the transfer the information abroad. So in here is we mentioned in GDPR mentioned a certain case that is the information will be transferred to abroad. So even first they have to get the consent from the client in order to do that, and but also in certain case the cost, for example, in order to enforce the judgment of the cost, they also do the transfer the data information abroad, for example. There's certain provision to do that, and between the that is European Union is a member state. Between them, they have a cooperation mechanism in order to protect and transfer the data information between the country to country. And another point relating to the obligation of the controller, that means when they file the infringement of the GDPR, they have to immediately to inform or notify to the supervisor authority within 72 hours from when they first know that there is infringement. And so this is the first obligation. The second obligation is related to the sensitive information. The controller needs to notify to the data subject. And Mr. Nate, at the beginning, he told he spoke that it's about the sanction is very high in European Union if you don't comply with it. So it should be 4% of the total revenue annually. So it's very high. 10 million European or 2.5% revenue in the global when they violate the GDPR. And another point related to a DPO, that's mean data protection officer, that's mean in the each company, they have to assign or design data protection officer in order to receive any complaint from the customer and notify to the supervisory authority in case of enforcement. So in this way,
DPO has to be a staff of the company, or it can be an IT officer outside. You outsource it, or a lawyer from a law firm.
I think that is it can be either way. First, they can employ the person outside the company to be the DPOs, and so that they can monitor and supervise all the activities that relating to the processing the data information, or they can design IT person to be the DPO. For example, Vietnam Airlines, they have first in European, they design a person to have who has legal knowledge, and so we call this DPO in Europeans. And the second one, who is have knowledge of IT in the Vietnam Airlines, to be the DPO in order to receive all information and notify to the supervisory authority. Yeah.
So either way.
Either way, yes. And about the supervisory authority, I think that is in each member state, they establish the supervisory authority in order to to monitor and to receive any notification and to do investigation in state necessary in order to protect data information from their citizen.
So my understanding is that the main point of GDPR is as follows. Number one, you must have a transparent policy to collect the data. Number two, you must get the consent from the data subject before you collect it and you process it. Number three, you must have a DPO who are responsible for processing the data so that there's no leakage and there's no misuse of the data. And number four is that you have to be open book to the supervisory authority if there is a problem.
Yes.
And you have to inform them, or maybe you can have some certificate from them before you apply. I think in case of Vietnam Airlines, you have to apply for something and you get some certificate, or you don't have to.
Yeah, I think it's later about Vietnam Airlines.
Right.
I will talk more details about this, but I think they said your summarize is quite right. But I would like to add more points. That's been the important points of the GDPR that's been relating to the data subject rights. That's mean they have the right to access to the information. They have the right to rectify the information. They have the right to withdraw consent. So in this case, that is between the data subject and the controller, they don't have any contract anymore. They have no service, no contract, so they can withdraw it. So, but it's basically the 4 points, as I mentioned. You also refer to the first one is about
about withdrawal. Very interesting. I have, let's say, I have information in Zalo, I can withdraw, but then after a while, I cannot withdraw anymore. After a few days, or maybe, I don't know how long, 1 month, I cannot withdraw anymore. Is that a violation?
I think that is this is more or less related to technical point.
Right.
But I think that when you withdraw your consent, I think that the controller will tell you that is the legal consequence or the consequence when you withdraw it. For example, for Vietnam Airlines, for example, when you withdraw your data, for example, so you don't get any, for example, any discount from Vietnam Airlines, for example, in the program they done the discount, for example, they cannot get, you cannot get from them, you cannot send it to you, for example. Yeah. Okay, move on. And so this is the second part of the Decree 13. And as I mentioned earlier, in 2023, the government of Vietnam is issued the Decree 13. And so I think that is, to some extent, the Decree 13 is incorporate the GDPR regulation. When I was in Vietnam Airlines, I heard that is when it's start from the military police. They going to adopt the going to adopt the GDPR regulation, but they need to make the changes in according to the Vietnamese law. So I think that is
so
I
also heard that the police come to Vietnam Airlines to learn how to build to draft Decree 13.
Yeah, sure.
Because Vietnam is Vietnam Airlines is the first company that get the real experience of GDPR.
So I think that is when before we talking about the Decree 13, we need to talk about the rights of the privacy information in the civil code. So we can see that Article 38 of the civil code is also provide the rights of the data subject in terms of relating to the privacy information. As you can see in the screen, so relating to the personal information is protected by under law Vietnam. And so the Decree 13, we also they also regulate relating to the basic normal or basic information or sensitive information and consent and the processes of the third party relating to the process information. So it's the same to GDPR. And they also talk about the rights of data subject. Yeah, we have X by yes. And we also Decree 13 also related have a provision related to the sanction, including the administrative sanction and criminal sanction. And yeah, and they also provide the structure, provide the procedure. That means when the data information was infringed, or when the controller find out that infringement or breach of the data information, they need to notify to the supervisory authority within 72 hours. And so it also needs to describe in detail, for example, relating to the information and the consequence about damage and about the measure in order to mitigate the breach. And so they should, the supervisory authority in this case is the police officer. And so we also talk about the assessment of the impact assessment of data personal data. So in this case, when they want to transfer the personal data abroad, they need to do the first thing. That's they need to do the data personal impacts assessment. So when they establish the records and then they submit to the police authority, and the police authority needs to verify it, and then you have right to transfer across the data information. And here we can see that the two types of the sanction. The first one is criminals, and the second is the administrative sanction. And so we expect you to talk about in details about the Vietnam Airlines case, but to some extent during my presentation, and I will next on to discuss about the Vietnam Airlines case. And so I think that is Vietnam Airlines is the first company when exposed to the GDPR regulation. So when I was there in 2018, so this, by the time I moved from the MOJ to Vietnam Airlines, so I first came to Vietnam Airlines. I need to read the whole GDPR regulation, and then I need to contact with the lawyers, HFS, and we also contact with another consultant company in Europe in order to make a whole assessment to the Vietnam Airlines IT system and the procedure of Vietnam Airlines in order to process the data information of the customer and the passenger. So so first thing they do when the consultant they come to Vietnam Airlines, they should first they came to the headquarters, and then they came to the branch of Vietnam Airlines, as well as the subsidiaries of Vietnam company who connects all the information in order to make the whole assessment of the company, of the group. So as I mentioned in here in the slide, you can see that is Vietnam Airlines is exposed to the GDPR, given the fact that is Vietnam Airlines is provide all the service to the European citizens.
So in practice, what you do, you provide like a data protection policy internally for
yes,
Vietnam
we first Vietnam Airlines we have we enact the procedure in order to protect the data information from the passenger, for example, related to
so you hire a lawyer to
draft this and
policy data.
And this is the first relating to the procedure. But the second point, we need to upgrade our IT system in order to
protect. And then you hire an IT consultant to upgrade your IT system,
make assessment and to upgrade the system in order to protect all the data information, so that this can not happen in the case that the information leaked out in the public. Yeah. So we here the slide is more or less related to the scope of application, as I mentioned about is Europeans. When you have the customer from European Union, you have to comply with the GDPR. So I already talked about it, and so we need to move on. And so here the consent. So I remember that is when we sell the tickets to the passenger, we need to have their consent to provide information. That means in the website we have to design in the website the disclaimer. That means when the customer buy the tickets from Vietnam Airlines, that means they provide information to the Vietnam Airlines for processing
they have to
information. They have to accept it and in the website, and for the DOA is
why don't I see it in the app? Maybe I see it on the website, but not in the app.
Maybe it's hidden somewhere. I don't know. But it's certainly that's
maybe before I register.
So anyway, even now you claim to the Vietnam Airlines that you don't have consent, but they also point out that you already consent when you buy tickets, so no way you can do that. Okay. So even with the customer who under 16. So is the case very complicated? So we need to think about it, and even sometimes we. So I remember.
Messenger information. Let's say if you go with your, sorry to say, if you go with your lover, the name of your lover would be on the next time.
Yes.
When you go to the
But
website.
We didn't do that, but we also did the same thing with the like customer in the website when for the child under 16, that means parents need to to consent for Vietnam Airlines to process the information.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the point. Oh, okay. So that Vietnam Airlines is they have another subsidiary company. They have ground handling companies, for example. They also collect some passenger information. So Vietnam Airlines need to sign, the contract between them in order to protect the data subject information. And they also have in Tanai or Corsair joint venture with the other airlines. So between the airline, we need to sign the contract for.
So for the bank, if you share the information with insurance company, for example, you have to
sign the contract.
You have to sign the contract to protect the
so
information.
if they are both,
right.
For example, if now Vietnam Airlines and the insurance company, we both collect the information. That means we are joint controller. But if we Vietnam Airlines, we sign with the other contract, for example, contractor, for example, the server, to process the information. That means we between the controller and processor.
Right.
So
I think the airlines maybe not have a lot of information, but the banks, they do have a lot of information.
Sure,
not only your personal data, but they know how money you have.
Yeah.
And what is your shopping preference, because you spend your money for the shoppers. So they know what kind of preference you have, and a lot of information. So imagine this kind of magnitude. If you're talking about the banks, they know a lot more information than the airlines.
Yes, certainly the bank have massive information. Yeah. So for example, between them in Vietnam, the bank signed a contract with the VNPay, for example.
Right.
So they need to have a certain provision in the VNPay in order to protect the bank from any legal consequence if the VNPay disclose any information of the passenger, the customer to the public. So the banks are fully protected.
Right.
If they don't sign any contract.
I remember when Jack Ma, they say that the Chinese bank, perhaps Vietnamese bank, is operating at a pawn shop. It's like the only thing they care is about security, mortgage. But that's not everything. They have a lot of data. So that's why they have Ali Finance or An Finance. He tried to do some kind of digital banking, and it's a different concept. They don't operate like a pawn shop, but they collect data, and from the data they know that whether they lend the money for the people who have money to pay, how much is their salary, how stable is their income, what kind of interest, default, credit rating, everything. So all the information that change how the banks do business.
Yes, I think that Jack Ma is wise, because this time is the errors for the AI and IT development. So so we need to be careful about how to protect the data from the customer. So that means we protect ourselves. So that is on the contract side between Vietnam Airlines and others companies. And so usually, Vietnam Airlines sometimes gets in trouble because it's a customer from Europe. They send a complaint to Vietnam Airlines because they think that is because they complain about the emails is sent to them is so frequently about advertisement, so they want to stop it. If you Vietnam Airlines not to stop it, they're going to bring to the cost and to get the compensation.
Yep.
So that is the normal case. And the second case is sometimes is the passengers is leak the information to public. And so now Dr. Nez is also mentioned about it when he get the flight from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. Some of the company, the taxi is calling him in order to offer the service, transportation service to nearby. So that's the only stuff is we have in the legal department of Vietnam Airlines, we have a division to settle on the case related to that point.
How do you settle that case? So you receive the information and you try to track where is the leakage, and then
we have to to try to convince the customer in a good way that is their own information has their information is safe and protected, and sometimes we
then how come
yes, and we need to check it with the IT people, and we also offer them a good service, other service in order to compensate them. If otherwise they can, otherwise they sue us to European cost and we get more trouble.
And sometimes you also have information like, hey, you have this apartment, you want it for sale or for rent. How do they know that I have an apartment? And how do they know that?
So that is
I want it for sale or for rent.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
This is normal noise.
Yeah.
And about DPO, that's when we established the DPO in Hanoi and in European Union as well. And we also report to the supervisor authority in Europe. And so in conclusion, I would like to emphasize the point that is for all the Vietnamese company and who collects the personal data from the customer passenger, they must pay attention to to 9 points. The first one, they need to build up the policy for compliance with the GDPR. The second one is they have to build up the processing procedure relating to the personal data, and especially relating to the sensitive information, and the procedure to handle in case of the breach of the data information, and in order to design it, the DPO, and channel to receive information or complaints, and also say establish the channel to
so all
the
of this,
customer
which part of it you need
and
the
then we
or
finish and 7.7 relating to the contract. You have to be careful relating to sign contract with the others for service provider processor, and we also the point is you have to do the impact assessment when including the technical point relating to the legal point as well. And
so which part of them is technical and which part of them is technical?
I think that is relating to the number 8 and number 9.
8 and 9 is technical, and the rest is legal.
Legal, you have to do it, and so I think that we recommend here is LLTs. We can help you to do all the assessment and to do that, and try to figure out the contract between you and the processor. So thank you very much and for listening. Now I would like to move on the Q&A section. If you have any question, please let us know.
Thank you very much. Can be online. We have questions.
Sorry, we have not received any questions from online. Yeah, dear our virtual attendee, if you like to have a question, so you can please put on the chat function of the Zoom. So we can move.
Yes, and also for offline, we have questions. Yes.
Thank you. So, it's really insightful to listen to your presentation today. So may I introduce? I am from the department of Vietnamese business, and
Okay.
I have a great opportunity right now to also doing and we are preparing an offer to submit to the Ministry of Security Public also.
Okay.
Yeah.
For compliance degree 13.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And I observed so many issues while we preparing, even though we are based in Swiss, because we have to comply with GDPR, and that is for sure we are really a pharma company, so there are a lot.
You know how to do it.
Sensitive,
Yeah.
But in Vietnam, there is a different story.
Okay.
The first one, I would like to get your advice from a very it's a issue for us to, and we really do not have to deal with our partner also. It's a human resources outsourcing service. It's kind of that. As you may know, there are a lot of practice in enterprise in Vietnam. We may not have enough. Like we would like to hire externals, but the nature of the activities is that we are the one who collect the information. We are the one who had talent. They had all the talents to our company, but we don't have enough, maybe a headcounts for that. So we have to hire external for that. And there would be an outsourcing service company to do that. So there would be a very a framework for that. So Vietnamese is a master service contract, and we hired it to do that for us. So to do that, we have to then transfer all the data we collect from the you can say personal, potential employee. And that is when the company is kind of complicated, because when you transfer them to a labor outsourcing company, they will sign off, they will create all the afterward procedure with the external. If they hired by us, but
that's
legally, they sign off a labor contract with the individual.
Okay.
But as I mentioned before, we have a framework, we have a master service agreement. So this is the point.
Then you have to share information.
That's right. So there has been quite a discussion. We have not dealt with each other. Who is the controller here and who is the processor here. So if you based on the nature of activity, we are the one who collect all the personal data. We initiate the processing, the collection. So we identify us as the controller. But if you based on the labor agreement, which means that outsourcing company with the individual, they identify them as controller. And so we have two different kind of processing agreements right now, because we cannot reach a final agreement. Who is the real controller here? So can I straight to your thoughts on
I think that is it's very normal situation when we can be both the controller and processor sometimes. So it's very difficult to identify this kind of how to, for example, it's like you mentioned, the controller doesn't mean the person who collect the information, and you also have, and so in such case it's very easy, and you assign another processor in order to process the information for you, and in order to make the profiles of the customer. So it's very clearly point. But it's sometimes you connect the information, you also process the information. That is the point is there. So I think that is such case, you have to make the whole assessment of the company, and in order to how you can protect the data collected from the passenger or the customer,
or employee,
and even the employers. employees.
Yeah.
So, and the main purpose of the GDPR and the decree number 13 is to protect the data.
So you can
prevent this-
describe that you are the processor, or you hire somebody as a processor, and you
so
show to the police that you make sure that the process is transparent and protected.
you cannot, or you have obligation to prevent the breach of the leaks of information, the breach of the regulation, and breach of the Vietnamese decree. I think that is should be the key point you have to follow. But I think that some information you collect from the employees, but I think as a Vietnamese employee, so you subject to the decree 16. But I think that some information you collect from employees who are the European Union, for example, or citizens, you should be subject to the GDPR.
Yeah.
So we need some time to to discuss with you later, because it's quite difficult to identify or classify the controller processor and the roles what you are doing. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
I just want to ask you the relationship between the processor and the controller. So is that including the relationship between the seller and the buyer? I understood that the contract between the processor and the controller is kind of we offer the service to process the data information with the purpose ABCD, but it's possible the processor would like to buy that the data, whether or not including in that the contract. Is there any violate under Vietnamese law?
I think that is this is the case that is the control the processor going to buy the information data from the controller, right, in order to establish their customer profile, for example, right?
Sorry, interrupt you a little bit, because for the customer, of course, we have the pop-up when the customer click on accept or term and condition, they agree to let us use the information already. But behind that, we're just saying that the information will be using or maybe transferred to third party to process the data. But I never knowing that we sell that the information. So is it in the how can I say?
I understand.
Yeah, any word to say in that to let to release our responsibility if the authority come and check.
Yeah, I think that is this case very clearly. That is who are the controller, who are the processor, because when the person, for example, the customer click on and declare the information you collected, first point you are controller, and you want to transfer it to the processor. That means you, between the processor, you have a contract. You must have a contract.
Right.
And if you don't have contract, that means you violate the law. That is and the post and the supervisor authority comes and check it out. The police come and check it, and you violate the law. I think that's in this case you have to have contract between the processor. Yeah. So my advice is it does.
But my question is whether or not we collect the money to sell it.
Yeah, you don't, no problem, because in this case you transfer to the processor. That means they help you to process the information, but without any purpose. Yeah, but between you also. Without any purpose of the selling to them any data that is harm to any people. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like that in the contract
we just say it clearly. So in this case, the data information of the customer disclosed to the public, so they need to be responsible from their end.
I have a second question.
Sure.
Yeah, it's relating to the relationship between the employee and the employer. So it's mean that based on the decree 13 is under control. That's the relationship, right? So what if our employee immediately want to, that is not immediately, when they would like apply the application to stop to work for us. So they, at the same time, they request us immediately to withdraw their consent to use their information. So, but if we agree, there's a little bit trouble for us, because after the employee stop working for the company, we need to do some step with the social insurance, social authority. So how can we collect how can we use that information?
So I think that is it's better way when the employee stop working for your company, it's better way you sit down with them and you have a, maybe maybe you have memorandums or whatever. We have we call it contract is okay, but it's maybe commitment that is your company can continue use the employees' information in order to work with the authority, and they must sign it and agree with that, and you are safe.
But if they say no,
They know
then we're not allowed to.
no, yeah, you're not allowed to do it. But I think for this purpose, I think that is the employees all agree, because it related to there's interest, because we need to keep informed with the social social association, for example, in order to continue less contribution to the social service, right? Yeah.
But is there any specific rules to say that how long we keep that the information?
Until you finish working with the social.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No more questions?
No more questions. Okay, thank you. So then the next speaker would be Just Fu. And thank you very much, Dr. Tuan, again for a very